Well, clearly the shit show continues, doesn't it? And do you know what? There's a part of me that really wants some juicy, meaty, let's call it conspiracy theory, behind all of this stuff that's going on in the world at the moment, just to justify all the crap and bullshit that we're being fed with on a daily basis. Because without an agenda, I'm afraid that we are just being led by a bunch of narcissistic, inept idiots. And yes, that's a judgment. And those of us in the spiritual field mustn't judge, must we? Because point a finger at someone, you'll have 3 fingers pointing back. But hey ho, I don't care. It's hard work, isn't it? So, round the merry-go-round we go again. Yeah, round the merry-go-round. And you know what? If you don't agree with me, I'm fine with that. In fact, I love diversity of opinion. I also love diversity of objectivity and fact as well, you know. I just love the diversity of the tumultuous nature of our mind's filters that allow us to project onto the world generally how we're feeling about ourselves and how we feel about life and how we've been conditioned and how we've been told reality is and what our attachments are and what our aversions are and all that kind of stuff. So it's all very telling, isn't it? It's all very telling, you know, the way we're dealing with the information and the authoritarianism and the most ridiculous, illogical, structural rules that are being put in place that limit our freedoms at the moment. And yeah, I feel quite strongly about it, not from the perspective that, you know, I feel I have any ultimate control over the total outcome of what happens on this sad little planet in the middle of the freaking galaxy, right? But to be honest with you, I have some element of control and hopefully with a bit more practice, mastery over my little bit of the jigsaw. And my little bit of the jigsaw right now is saying this is a load of crap. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're probably watching this video 20 years down the road, all right? Because this is bang in the middle of the 2020 pandemic or plandemic or whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call it shit show. Crappy B movie. Black and white crap. Yeah? Crap, shit. It's all a load of fuck. So now I've got that out of my system. Now I've got all my, let's have a look here, anger out of my system. Maybe we need to talk about how we get trapped in forceful states of consciousness versus more powerful states of consciousness. And I've got a little, I don't know if you can see that, little table here. This booklet here is a course that I wrote, which I use, or did use, in the prisons when I was when I was kind of teaching mindfulness and self-awareness to the prison inmates. But at the moment, I've been stopped from going in there because of this shit show. Yeah, I've been stopped going in because of this shit show, and I'm assuming there's probably a lot of people suffering in there at the moment. I've heard from various sources that we think we're being locked down, but the inmates in some of these Category B establishments are being stuck in their cells for over 23 and a half hours a day. And having experienced that myself, it's not pleasant. 23 and a half hours a day with half an hour of what I'm assuming is exercise, i.e. walking around a yard. And pretty much not much else to do, really, apart from being plugged into some television set, which is clearly projecting more bullshit and fear at you. So yeah, not a pleasant state of physicality to be experiencing. Tough initiations for a lot of people at the moment. There's clearly an energy at the moment which needs to work its way through humanity. Call it. It's not really, well, I suppose it is shadow energy, but there's a really heavy energy that is still vying for attention. That is either clearing through these events, or it's actually attempting to create more of a grip and more of a footing within the collective human psyche. And the reason I want to just run through this chart very quickly is because we have this energy within us, okay? Everything that goes on within us is clearly reflected outside of us, and how we manage and transform our energy through our psyche, through our souls, or our different subtle bodies within our soul, will determine how we action, how we do things. So karma, what karma we create. Karma means action, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. But ultimately, the root of the word karma is ultimately translatable as action. Yeah? And our actions can come in many different ways, yeah? We can think something, we can feel something, but then what we say and what we do, those physical actions that we then project and place out into our surrounding environment, determines the experiences that we experience. So if we're sitting in states of consciousness that are forceful and require feeding, okay, we're not going to be living in a particularly pleasant environment. I'm going to list through, okay, and this is a supposedly a clinically proven map of consciousness. It's used for a healing art called kinesiology. But the lower down the scale of forceful states of consciousness you are, the more constricted and confined your consciousness is. Okay, so I'm gonna do an interesting thing. I'm gonna give you, and because we're doing some of the spiritual stuff, but I'm going to run through the different levels of consciousness that we can reside within. And sometimes we do these things simultaneously, right? So we don't reside 100% in certain states of consciousness. But being in that state of consciousness will give you a perspective on life, okay? A view on life, but also a view on God, okay? Or what you perceive or what you feel is God, if you believe in a God, right? Or God. I'll use the word God, all right? Because there's plenty of names, but let's use the word God. And if that bothers you, you need to go read some more ancient texts, okay? Because if you're bothered by the word God, you've probably been indoctrinated too much by churchianity, yeah, and dogma rather than anything else. So yes, I'm feeling quite assertive tonight. You've probably noticed. So the lowest state of consciousness, or the most forceful and destructive state of consciousness, just above death, actually, is shame. Yeah? Your view on life when you experience shame is misery. And your view on God is of a despising one. So if you're constantly in shame, feeling shame, your emotions tend to be around humiliation. The process is elimination. Your view on life is miserable. And if you believe in a God, you believe in a despising one. Okay? The next one up from shame is guilt. Your view on life is that it's evil. And your view on God is that he or she is vindictive. There is a blame to the emotions that you feel. Hiya, Harry.
Hello, Dad.
Do you enjoy your ice cream?
Yeah.
Good. And the process is destruction. So too much guilt can create large amounts of destruction, not only within you, but outside of you as well. Okay, I won't go into the specifics because I don't want to, make this video too long, and we can maybe go into some of the specifics on how these states of consciousness manifest as certain actions, karmas, in life. Okay, the next one up from that is apathy. Okay, your view on life is hopeless, and the view on God is of a condemning one. Okay, the general emotion is despair, and the process is abdication. So that's apathy. So that's 3 up from the bottom. The next forceful state of emotion, and if you've ever noticed, if you've ever resided in any of these states of consciousness, which we all have at some point in time in life, these are weak. They require feeding. So they require your energy to sustain them, okay? So the lower down the scale you go, the weaker you feel, okay? Why do you think, with all the rhetoric that's going around at the moment, there's a lot of, you got to snitch on your neighbour, you got to shame people for not wearing masks, you've got to make people feel guilty for not following the government advice. It's because what that does is it makes you feel weak. And when you're weak, you're easy to control, right? Yeah. So think about it. Think about how this hypnotism is creating states of consciousness within you. Either way, it's an opportunity to extract your consciousness out of these bottles, right? Yeah, out of these let's call them, what should we call them? Demons. Yeah. And the more we extract our energy and consciousness out of them, the more empowered and stronger within we become. Not stronger from the point of view that you can gain power over people and you become, a great tyrannical, narcissistic leader, right? Because that's just pride, which is at the top of the forceful list, which I'll get to in a minute. But if you're residing too much and for too long in these states of consciousness, which are part of the human psyche, okay, it's part of being, part of the humanoid experience, let's call it. If you dwell in it too much, though, they will eventually create dis-ease, okay? Disease within you. Disease within, disease without, destruction, and all sorts of other nasty stuff, okay? So it's an opportunity to look into it and become aware of where you are residing in some of these states. And if someone is making you feel shameful or making you feel guilty, look into it. Understand why. Why am I feeling shame here? When actually 100% of my, or maybe it's not, because sometimes what'll happen is you will attract something to highlight your doubt. So if you're speaking your truth, but you still have some doubt about that, someone will come along and poke that doubt, and they'll make you feel shame or they'll make you feel guilt. Okay, so you have to be 100% committed and confident in yourself. Okay, it doesn't mean, being confident doesn't mean being arrogant, but it just means being confident enough to speak your truth and feeling strong enough really not to be affected by what other people think of you in that. And if that's a lonely path for a while, then that might have to be the case. Yeah, path of the warrior. So the next one up from apathy is grief. The view on life is tragedy. Life is tragic. The view on God is of a disdainful one. The emotions tend to be regret. And the process is despondence. Okay? So again, a state of consciousness. Grief, sometimes we have to feel grief, but we have to process the grief, allow the grief to flow out of us, not feed the grief. Okay? The next one from grief is fear. Okay? So this is a, an old favourite, an old friend of ours, come rearing its ugly head again in our faces. Good old fear. And the view on life is it's frightening. Oh, life is frightening. Okay? The view on God is punitive, believe it or not. So look at all the religions now that go, oh, no, God will smite you down with his thunderbolts and lightning for being a naughty boy or girl, right? So if you're kept in fear, you're easy to control again, right? Because it's a weak emotion. The emotion is anxiety, too much anxiety, And the process is withdrawal. So when there's too much fear going on, your natural reaction is to want to kind of just withdraw and feel safe. Okay, and that tends to be, that withdrawal can create even more confinement. Okay, so if you're frightened of something, or someone is trying to frighten you, your natural reaction, okay, fight or flight. Obviously, if you have to fight, you have to fight, but you're fighting from a position of weakness because you're in fear, right? But most people just want to flee. They just want to kind of put themselves in a box somewhere and come out when it's safe. The next state above fear is desire, okay? And there are schools that say, fulfill all your desires, fulfill your dreams. But, I like to go back to the teachers who kind of knew what they were talking about, the Buddha, Christ, some of the Hindu saints that we've heard of, who ultimately have done their work. Yeah. If you're walking your talk and you've done your work, then that teacher is worth listening to, and maybe not necessarily following and worshipping, but to some extent, looking and aspiring to. Okay, so desire creates a very disappointing view of life, because even if we do meet some of our desires, they tend to be very temporary, and most of the time none of our desires get really met the way we want them to be. Okay, we have a view on God that is denying. If you don't get what you want, or carrot and stick, you can't have your desires. Okay, so if you don't get your desires met, then obviously, and you want to blame God, then you're seeing God as a denying one. Okay, the emotion is craving, constantly craving, and the process is enslavement, because if you're a slave to your desires, then you're a slave to your desires. You're in prison. You're a prisoner to your desires. And that's why the Buddha said that the root cause of all suffering is desire. Okay? Because nothing out there is going to fulfill you permanently. Yeah? If we're in that hungry ghost realm, our bellies will never be full. Next one up from desire, and now we're getting up to the line where we transfer from weakness to strength. Okay, but the next one up from desire, which still is a weak state of consciousness, is anger. Okay, the view on life is antagonistic. Okay, the view on God is of a vengeful one. So if you're angry all the time, you think of a vengeful God. The emotion is hate, and the process is aggression. So although anger can come across as looking strong, if it's being projected at you, it's actually very weak. Okay, it's a forceful state of consciousness, and it requires food. Yeah, if you've ever been angry for even a short period of time, you feel drained after it, right? None of these states of consciousness make you feel empowered. None of these states of consciousness make you feel good about yourself. None of these states of consciousness make you feel strong. Okay, they take energy from you, they drain you, they create drama, and they just want more food. So look at them as little demons who just want feeding their spaghetti bolognese, right? And then the last one on this list, which is classed as a weak, forceful state of consciousness, is pride. Okay, I'm proud. I've clapped the NHS. Look at me outside my house with my neighbours. I'm proud. I've won a medal. I'm proud. I'm. So that I that you think you are, right, is trying to feed itself. Okay, it's trying to aggrandize itself through pride, and self-aggrandizement is a big ego trap on the path. So look at your pride and see where it's coming from. All right, try and understand what is it that you feel you need to be proud of to make you feel good about yourself, right? The view on life is demanding, and the view on God is indifferent. Okay, so when you're in your pride, yeah, you see God as an indifferent God. The emotion is scorn, and the process is inflation. So you're inflating yourself. But like most balloons, yeah, a little needle can pop them. All right, so you're still in a weak state. Okay, so look now, after I've read that list of states of consciousness, look at how, through the television, through newspapers, through whatever channels of information you're looking at, look at how these things are making you feel. Okay? This virtue signaling, is that coming from your pride? Or is that coming genuinely, and you've got to be honest with yourself, and genuinely coming from your heart, right? Are you being made angry? Are things getting to the point where it's pissing you off so much that you're starting to get really angry and frustrated with things? Yeah? Do you have desires being triggered through this? Right? If you're locked away and you want to go and have an ice cream, right, and you can't, then that craving for ice cream, right, is going to be in the forefront of your head, and that's going to be taking your energy, right? Are you sitting in fear? Are you sitting in grief? Probably, if you can't see the people you want to see in your life, if you can't, if you've lost people, yes, grief is being created in you. Apathy. Yeah, laziness. Oh, what's the point? Sit on the sofa, watch Netflix, stuff my face full of Doritos. Guilt. Are you being made to feel guilty because maybe you're thinking outside of the box a little bit, or not thinking in line with whatever rhetoric is being pumped out of the mainstream channels? Are you being made to feel guilty because you're buying into, or you even believe, or you can even prove that there are some conspiracy theories going on? Let's not even call them conspiracy theories. Other theories going on. Okay? Are you having trouble on Facebook from your friends who are shaming you because your views aren't in line with theirs? All right. So all this stuff that's happening on this planet at the moment is keeping us in this red zone, right? And the color red is also a representation of hell. So hell is a place within you that we reside, that our consciousness gets trapped in, and keeps us weak. Okay, keeps us craving for outside authority, or something outside to make us feel safe, make us feel fulfilled, make us feel happy, temporary. And there's nothing out there that can make you feel like that long term. But as long as you're here, you're still looking for something out there. All right. Okay, the video's up to 22 minutes long, so I'm going to whiz through the strong emotions. All right. These speak for themselves. So as I'm saying, so what I'll do, once I've whizzed through the strong ones, I'll go through the whole list. I want you to close your eyes while I'm going through the whole list and genuinely tap into how you feel when I say the words, all right? So let's just run through the strong emotions. The one above pride now. See, now we're in a creative phase. Now we're moving from weak to powerful, empowered. These states of consciousness require no external energy to feed them. They are self-generated, okay? They are powerful, okay? Courage, okay? Your view on life is that it's feasible. And your view on God is that your God is a permitting God, okay? The emotions are affirmation, and the process is empowerment. And there's a difference between pride and courage, okay? Then we move up to neutrality, okay, where the view on life is satisfactory, the view on God is enabling, the emotion is trust, and the process is release. Okay, so when we start to become neutral, we let go a little bit, we start to trust life a little bit more. The next level is willingness. View on life is hopeful. The view on God is inspiring. The emotion is optimism. Okay, and the process is intention. The next one up is acceptance. The view on life is harmonious. The view on God is merciful. The emotion is forgiveness, and the process is transcendence. So when we're accepting of a situation, when we're accepting of how our external environment is in the moment, and we manage to surrender to that and feel fulfilled and content no matter what's going on around us, then we're in a state of neutrality and acceptance, which is a powerful state to be in, because nothing can rattle you, nothing can feed off you. Okay? The next one is reason. Okay? The view on life is meaningful. The view on God is wisdom, wise. Okay? the emotion is understanding, and the process is abstraction. Okay, so we start to really get up the chain here now. And reason, so if shame is level 20, reason is 400. Courage is 200, pride is 175. Fear is 100. Guilt is 30. Yeah? So these levels indicate how powerful they are. So one person sitting in reason, with most of their consciousness and their vibrations sitting in this level of reason, compensates for hundreds, if not thousands, of people energetically sitting in shame. Because the universe is in constant energetic balance, otherwise it would pull itself apart, right? So even by doing your own work, you are serving, right? You're in service. So the more you can untrap your consciousness from these lower states and move them further up the ladder, the more you're doing your work, the more you're able to balance people who are suffering and help those who are suffering. The next level is love. Okay, the view on life is that it is benign, and the view on God that God is loving. The emotion is reverence, and the process is revelation. The next one up from love is joy. The view on life is that it is complete. The view on God that it is one. The emotion is serenity, and the process is transfiguration. And then we move to peace, which means the view on life is perfect. The view on God is all being. The emotion is bliss, and the process is illumination. And then finally enlightenment, where the view on life is that it just is. The view on God is that it is self with a capital S. The emotion is ineffable, i.e. is unexplainable, and the process is pure consciousness. So you're out of hell, basically, and so the level of enlightenment is 1,000 on the kinesiology scale. The level of shame is 20. The level of death obviously is 0. So that is just a snapshot, right, of where our consciousness can be. All right, and more often than not, we kind of swing up and down the ladder, depending on what's going on. So all these situations that are happening at the moment, if they're making you angry, fearful, prideful, whatever, or courageous, accepting, hopeful, then look into that. Look into that, understand it more, build on the stuff that's powerful, understand and become aware of the stuff that isn't so powerful, that is creating more weakness in you, and look at why. Look at the attachments, and maybe start to redirect and transform and alchemize those weaker, more forceful states of consciousness into higher, more powerful states of consciousness. Use your anger, turn the energy of that anger into courage. Yeah, turn your apathy into willingness. Yeah, turn your shame, into acceptance. Yeah, of yourself primarily. Yeah, for where you're at. And don't forget to go easy on yourselves in these times. Yeah. So we'll leave it at that tonight. Excuse the rant at the start, but my anger had to be projected at you. Namaste.